What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to the All Sports Culture YouTube channel. I'm Sully. I'm going to be doing NFL teams tier list through week 5. I'm going to try to keep it semi-short, but we all know I can rant on probably every single team here. So I'm not going to include all of my thoughts. If you have any, discrepancies with the list, put your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you think someone should be higher or lower, let me know. I'll be responding to comments. With that being said, subscribe so you don't miss any more content. Hit that like button if you do enjoy the video. But let's get right into it. Just to explain these tiers and where I'm placing these teams, best of the best, pretty self-explanatory. These are the best teams in the league. These are the teams I'm expecting to make it to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl contenders, these are the teams that are right on that edge. They could make it to the Super Bowl, but they could fall a little short. Right there is the difference between being a playoff team and making it to the Super Bowl. I'll be surprised if these teams make it there, but I won't be super surprised. Playoff locks, these are the teams I'm not expecting to go to the Super Bowl, but they're probably going to win their division or at least get a wild card. Playoff contenders, they're iffy to make the playoffs. They're going to be competitive with most of these teams in the NFL, but I wouldn't be shocked if they missed the playoffs. Average, as an average team, they're going to be competitive with average and bad teams, but they'll probably lose to all the playoff teams. Bad teams, pretty self-explanatory. These teams are not very good, but they can still be competitive. Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes speaks for itself. These are the teams that are in contention for the number 1 pick. Even if they're taking Trevor or not, they're in contention for that number 1 pick. So let's get right into it. Starting off with the Tennessee Titans with a very impressive win over the Buffalo Bills, and they haven't even really had any practice, so it was extremely impressive. 42-16. I'm going to put them right there. I want to put them Super Bowl contenders, but when you have a quarterback like Ryan Tannehill, who I don't trust a ton, even though he's played great this year, and he played great last year, he just seems like a quarterback who's never really going to get you over that hump. I mean, if Matt Ryan can't win a Super Bowl, I really don't think Ryan Tannehill is going to be able to. Yes, it has to do with your roster, of course, but it's just, he scares me a little bit. Although Tennessee is playing great, they're definitely close to Super Bowl contenders. Miami Dolphins, I'm putting them in bad. They just beat the Niners, so it's hard to not put them in average. They're very close to average. Although I do think the Niners are somewhat of a mess right now. I'll get to them. I just think this team is, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's been a journeyman for a reason. He has hot games and he has cold games. He's going to have some cold games. They're probably going to bench him eventually. Tua is going to come in. This team is really not competing for anything crazy, obviously not making the playoffs, but they have been decently impressive so far, so I do want to say they are close to an average football team for me. The Cleveland Browns, I'm putting them right there. I really like this offense, one of the best in the AFC, but their defense is definitely a little suspect, so that scares me a little bit. Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm putting them in bad too. They're not as good as the Dolphins. They're definitely worse than the Dolphins, but they still have a decent offense. I think they can stay competitive with these bad teams in here, even though they have lost to the Dolphins. I don't think they're tanking just yet. They're not like the worst team in the league. The Lions, they're average. Not a great team, but they have gotten some leads. I mean, they blow every lead, and they don't even wait until the fourth quarter like the Falcons, but they have gotten some leads over some solid teams, and they do have Matt Stafford. Matt Patricia does need to go, but I don't think this is like a bottom 5 team in the NFL, but they're definitely not great. They're closer to bad than they are playoff contenders for sure. Minnesota Vikings. They've been solid, but I'm just not a huge fan of Kirk Cousins. He's always fallen short in his career. But, and the defense isn't playing great, but Thielen and Dalvin Cook's a little banged up right now, but I think he's going to be all right. Justin Jefferson has been a beast. Mike Zimmer's on the hot seat a little bit, but he just signed an extension. It's a little weird place for him to be. So they're an average football team right now, pretty underwhelming this year. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers is an interesting one. ASC had them in our Super Bowl. I definitely did not agree there. But I'm going to put them right there. This is a team that even if they're not, out of the gate, a super hot team, they have Tom Brady. They're a veteran team. They have Gronk, Levante David for the defense. I mean, it's just, they're a veteran team. Even if they don't start hot, they can pull it together in the late season and make a run. So I think they're right there. Playoff lock, right on around there. Niners, I'm putting them in playoff contenders. They're scaring me a lot. Obviously, benching Jimmy G, was it because he was hurt? Was it performance? Might have been a little bit of both. The defense obviously is hurting because literally they are hurting. They don't have half of their players, and a lot of them aren't coming back this year. So it's going to be hard for them to really do a lot this year. If I made this 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'd probably say Super Bowl contenders or even right there. But, their only wins are against the Giants and the Jets. So it's hard to put them anywhere above that. The Atlanta Falcons. I want to put them in tanking because I think they're going to be in that stage very soon, possibly next week, maybe the week after. But they do have a decent offense, and they've obviously had some leads on some opponents who are having some decent seasons. So I'm going to put them in bad. I still think they can score some points against some good teams. So I don't think they're the worst team in the league. This is, reserved for some of the worst teams. The Ravens, Super Bowl contenders. I don't love what they've been doing, but obviously getting destroyed by the Chiefs. A lot of people do, so you can't say much. But then the Raiders come around and beat the Chiefs. So it's, the NFL season's a little wonky. Anything can happen. At the same time, the Ravens are a team that need to get the lead. They need to establish the run, and they weren't able to do that. And if they're not able to do that, they're not able to win most football games. But I still like them to do that against most teams. I'm going to put them in Super Bowl contenders. Obviously got a great defense. Chicago Bears. I'm going to put them in playoff contenders. Defense has been a lot better than I thought it would be. And that offense is probably just as bad as I thought it would be. They're very bad, but it's okay. Nick Foles was decent in the Thursday night game. He's been good enough to score 20 points, and that's usually enough for this team to win. They have had a somewhat easy schedule, but they're definitely going to contend for the playoffs. I mean, they're 4-1, so they put themselves in a good position. The Bengals, I'm going to put them in average. I think Joe Burrow's been solid. I like what they're doing over there. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put them in bad. They're close to average. I think that they stay competitive. They just got destroyed by the Ravens. Honestly, before that game, I definitely have them in average. I still think they're close to average because the Ravens, like I said, are one of the best teams in the league still. But it was a really ugly game. I think they're going to be trading A.J. Green and someone. He's probably on the trade block at this point. They're kind of falling apart. But that's what happens to most young teams, and they don't even have an offensive line. Zach Taylor hasn't been great. I'm going to put them in bad, but they are close to average in my opinion. The Dallas Cowboys. When you got Dak, you're right here. Without Dak, with Andy Dalton, I'm going to put playoff contenders. I still think they're going to win the NFC East, but it's going to be close. Them and the Eagles, in my opinion, are going to be battling it out. Losing Dak is really, really tough. Just want to say prayers out to him. Hope he has the best recovery. Hope he gets that contract he does deserve. And, it sucks what happened to him, but that's reality. The Houston Texans. I'm putting them in average. When you got Deshaun Watson as your QB, you're never going to be really that bad, and I don't think you're ever going to be, Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes, obviously. Although they are pretty bad, in terms of them actually playing, but at the same time, I think they're competitive with all these teams right here. Obviously, they played Minnesota, a very close game. Even against the Steelers, they played a very close game. And they obviously just beat the Jaguars, who are a bad team. But I like the Texans. I don't like the Texans. They're spending the most money on their roster. They got no first or second round picks. They just fired their GM and coach. They're in a really bad spot. At the same time, like I said, they're going to stay competitive with these teams. Indianapolis Colts. I want to playoff locks, but I'm going to put them playoff contenders. I really just don't trust Phillip Rivers at all, in the slightest bit, not even the slightest bit. I just don't think he has, what I like to say, any zing on his throws. When you watch him play, he's just not able to put the ball in the right spots half the time. And he had a really bad end to the game last week, so I don't love the Colts, but their defense is spectacular. That's the one thing keeping them alive right now. The Rams, playoff locks. I really like what the Rams are doing. I wasn't huge on them coming into the year. Thought this was kind of like they went all in for that Super Bowl, and now they're kind of in like a lull stage. But they've been super solid. Goff's been solid this year. I think that they're playoff locks, although it is a hard division. Chargers, I like them in average. They have a horrible record, can't really put them in playoff contender, but they are competitive with all these teams. Honestly, could probably beat most of these teams. So it's hard to put them down here, but they're 3-13 in one-score games since the start of last season. Herbert is much better than Phillip Rivers was last year, but at the same time, there's a couple throws that he always wants back at the end of games, and if you have that, you're always probably going to be an average football team. Kansas City Chiefs, best of the best. Yes, they lost to the Raiders. It was a shootout. The defense isn't looking great. It was the same thing last year. I'm not worried about the offense. I never will be. The defense just needs to be a solid defense going into the playoffs. Right now, that's not what they are, but they weren't last year. And then last, 7 or 6 games going into the playoffs through the Super Bowl, they were one of the best defenses. So I'm not too afraid for them. The Saints, I'm going to put right there. I think when they get Michael Thomas back, they might be Super Bowl contenders, but Drew Brees scares me a little bit. His last game was a little promising. The throw to Jared Cook was pretty solid. He had some, deeper throws than he has the rest of the season, but season prior. But he's still a little scary to me. I'm going to put him right there. They rely entirely on Alvin Kamara for the most part. And it's just, I don't know if they have enough to be in this tier with the Ravens or close to the Chiefs. Giants, that's Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. Now everyone's asking, Giants right here. I'm a Giants fan. I know we're horrible. Are you taking Trevor Lawrence if you get the first pick? If you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said no way. It's definitely creeping up a little bit, but at the same time, I think Daniel Jones has the potential to be a franchise QB. They're definitely not setting him up. At the same time, does Trevor Lawrence have more of an ability to change that franchise? Probably. It might be the smart idea to take him. Daniel just gives the ball to the opposing team every other play, so it's a little bit of a problem, I won't lie. The Eagles, playoff contenders. Yes, they just lost to the Steelers. Chase Claypool had a massive day. I'll go over that next. But they're definitely in contention to win this NFC East. The NFC East is very, very bad, as you know. And, I think it's going to be them and the Cowboys. Cowboys with Andy Dalton, the Eagles with Wentz. Wentz hasn't played great, but their game against the Steelers was pretty solid, and that transitions into the Steelers. I think they're Super Bowl contenders. I wasn't a massive fan going in, but I knew that their defense was one of the best in the league. I just needed to see it from Ben Roethlisberger coming off that major elbow surgery. Forgot for a second. Major elbow surgery. He's getting old. I don't love a lot of these old QBs, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers. They're just getting up there in age. They're losing a lot of their, ability to make big-time throws. But I think Ben still has that ability, and we've seen that so far this year. So I like them in Super Bowl contenders. That's going to be a tough division for the Ravens and the Steelers. And you got the Browns, too. That's a great division right there. The Broncos, average, bad. When Drew Lock comes back, maybe average. But right now, they're sitting around bad for me. I don't have much to say about them. I love Judy, though. And we'll see what Drew Lock can do coming back. Green Bay Packers, best of the best. I said the same thing last year. But, I was a huge believer in the Packers last year. And then they played the Niners, and they couldn't really block anyone in the NFC Championship. They got smoked. But I was big last year. I'm way bigger this year. Aaron Rodgers, I didn't know last year. I thought he was decent, but this year he looks different. He looks like his old self, but he looks different from last year. He's having fun. He's gonna win MVP this year, and Russell Wilson might have something to say about that. But it's gonna be close. I like the Packers this year. The Panthers, playoff contenders. Most people would have had them around bad, maybe even Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes, even though they just signed Teddy. Highest probably average going into the season. They're playoff contenders. They've won 3 in a row, maybe 4. They've won 3. They're 3-2. They've had a spectacular season. Love what Joe Brady's doing, offensive coordinator. Teddy's played great. They don't even have Christian McCaffrey. Mike Davis, the backup running back, has been spectacular in his replacement. So I really like what the Panthers are doing, and they have a chance to win that division. Oakland Raiders, playoff locks, playoff contenders. It's questionable for me. They don't have the best record, and they've lost to some teams that they probably should have beaten. At the same time, they just beat the Chiefs. I'm going to put them in playoff contenders. I'm going to need to see another week like that. NFL's kind of crazy. Sometimes teams go off like that. But I love what that offense has done. Derek Carr is throwing the ball deep now. He's got Ruggs. And I like what the Raiders are doing. Can't lie. This is the Redskins logo. Obviously, Washington football team. It's not updated. Apologies for that. But I'm going to put them in bad. They look super, super bad, I will say. Alex Smith came in. Dear God, my heart was just pumping out of my chest when Aaron Donald jumped on Alex Smith. It was ridiculous, but he withstand it. He made it through the entire game. Kyle Allen, he's probably going to be healthy for next week. Is he really the answer? Probably not. Obviously, Haskins is third string. They hate Haskins. He's probably done in Washington. Alex Smith is obviously not the future. They're going to be drafting a QB. They're probably trying to go for Trevor, but that defense is going to keep them in some games. I still like them to be competitive with all, these bad teams around here. Maybe not the Broncos so much when Locke comes back, and maybe not the Bengals, but I like them over the Giants and the Jets for the most part. Arizona Cardinals, I'm going to put them in playoff contenders probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. After the first 2 weeks of the season, I would have put them in playoff locks. I really liked what they were doing. That defense has just fallen apart. The offense isn't as spectacular as it was. Obviously, they just played the Jets. That will get you back on track. But I don't love what they're doing now, so I'm going to put them here. But I think they're close to playoff locks. I think they have a couple things to work out. The Bills are interesting. Before this week, I probably would have put them close to Super Bowl contenders. They'd be right on this line. Now I think they're right on this line. I'm going to put them playoff locks. I think they're going to be battling. I'm going to just jump to the Patriots. I think they're going to be battling with the Patriots for this division. Once the Patriots get Cam back, I think that the Patriots are a very solid team. Obviously a great defense, and they have Bill Belichick. As for the Bills, Josh Allen was playing like an MVP. He sort of fell off a little bit. Last night was tough. He made some questionable decisions, but I still like the Bills going forward, obviously. And like I said, I still think they're almost right there, right on that line. Obviously, I could be putting them right there. I might be overreacting a little bit, which is fair. But to get beat by a team that I'm not a huge fan on in the Titans that badly, it's going to hurt them in my book a little bit. Seattle Seahawks, best of the best. Russell Wilson has magic like no other QB in the league. I mean, him, Mahomes, Rodgers are in a different universe right now. And it's just, there's not much to say. It's Russell Wilson. Their defense isn't great, DK Metcalf is an absolute stud. I can't believe he was passed on by half of these teams by all these teams on the list, actually. But yeah, he got passed on way too much, landed in the best spot possible for him, and Russell Wilson and him have feasted together. And I love what they're doing. Jets, Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. They will be drafting Trevor if they get the first pick. There's no question about it. And granted, so will a decent amount of these teams. I mean, obviously not the Dolphins. The Jaguars probably will. The Falcons, if they were able to end up with the first pick, they would take him as well. Washington would take him as well. Obviously not the Bengals or the Broncos. But that being said, the Jets are horrible. They just released Le'Veon Bell before firing Adam Gase, so I think we should send them to the XFL once that opens back up. I think that's something we should definitely look into. With that being said, that's the list. If you agree, if you disagree, like I said at the beginning of the video, hit that comment section down below. Tell me your thoughts, if some teams should be higher or lower. I'll be responding. With that being said, like the video if you enjoyed. Make sure you're subscribing so you don't miss any All Sports Culture content. Make sure you're following us on Instagram at All Sports Culture. And that's going to be all. I'm Sully, and I'm out.